I got to give a big shout out to Dale Williams, our newest Patreon sponsor. So shout out to Dale across the sea, over the pond, out in the UK. And I thank all the other Patreon supporters as well. If you're wondering what the hell I'm talking about, Patreon is a way for people to support the podcast financially. There's 4 different tiers of support, and they all come with their own exclusive benefits. The Patreon subscribers get access to exclusive content, discounts, and free shit. And I'm going to be doing some special stuff for everyone soon, some gift packages and whatnot based on the level. For more information, just go to patreon.com/bigtruth. Again, patreon.com/bigtruth. And, I appreciate everyone that supports and listens. Make sure you hit subscribe, or follow, or make sure you leave a review where you can, wherever you're listening, whether it's Spotify. Well, I don't think you can leave reviews on Spotify, but whether it's on Apple or Android or YouTube, wherever, leave a review, leave some stars and whatnot. We appreciate it. It helps get this going and out to more people. But everyone out there, appreciate the support. Let's keep this going and growing. If you need parts for your motorcycle, you need to check out Old Bike Barn at oldbikebarn.com or on Instagram at Old Bike Barn. They got whatever you need. They got riding gear. They have their own line of leather goods and knives and all kinds of rad shit, especially for your old Japanese bike. If you got an old CB 500 or 750 or a Yamaha XS or whatever, and you need some parts for that, they have stuff that no one else has. So check them out at oldbikebarn.com. Pillars in the industry they are. Also, if summer is coming and you know where this is going, humidity's kicking in, areas that were once pristine forests and now turning into dingy fucking swamplands, you need manscaped.com. If your shit looks like a fucking oak tree sticking out in a fucking swamp, on Dagobah or some shit. If it looks like, if your shit looks like fucking Luke's X-Wing fighter stranded in the fucking swampy fucking heap of Dagobah, you need manscaped.com. What they got is this razor called the Lawnmower 3.0, and it's a way for you to groom and shave and clean up down in your nether regions and all the sensitive areas. They have these ceramic blades so you're not as apt to cut, scratch, or get any kind of blood on your fingers from going down there. Now, if you go to town like a full idiot, you might cut yourself. But if you just take it easy, everything's going to be all good. They also got a whole line of elixirs and things for your, whether it's anti-chafing creams or like ball deodorant and whatnot. Everything to make you clean and fresh down there. Check them out, manscaped.com. If you use the promo code BigTruth at checkout, you get 20% off your order and free shipping. So they always got these bundles and packages going on that are already discounted. If you use the promo code Big Truth at checkout, you'd even get 20% off that and free shipping. So it's a win-win. If you been fucking doing shit at the gym and you fucking hurt yourself and you got some inflammation going on or some muscle soreness and whatnot, or you just have trouble sleeping or anxiety, you need to check out Cradle Lake Clear at cradlelakeclear.com. They make CBD oils that are all super high quality and super effective. I take the mint chocolate one at night and sleep like a fucking baby. But yeah, check them out, cradlelakeclear.com. And if you're in the unfortunate situation where you happen to be in a motorcycle accident, check out lawtigers.com. They're a motorcycle law firm founded by riders for riders, and they specialize in motorcycle injuries and accidents and whatnot. So check them out, lawtigers.com, or go on Facebook and type in Law Tigers plus your state. So, for example, if you live in Massachusetts, you type in Law Tigers Massachusetts and search for that, and you will get your local office come up, a local or regional office. That way you can get to someone more closer to you. Because if you go to lawtigers.com and hit them up, they're just going to refer you to the local office anyway. So lawtigers.com, check them out. If you're looking for some clothing, summer's coming, you need some new gear, check out Omerta at omertamia.com or on Instagram at omertamia, one of the best clothing brands out there. Everything is done in-house. Most of their shirts are American-made, where most of their apparel is American-made wherever it can be. And they got everything you need, whether it's T-shirts, hoodies, jackets, scarves, socks. They do limited edition prints, all kinds of shit. So check them out, amertamia.com. And if you use the promo code Big Truth there, you also get 20% off your order. And going back to, I don't know, I always forget this with Cradle Lake Clear. If you use promo code Big Truth at checkout there, you get 20% off your order there as well. So you're saving 20% at 3 spots so far. You're winning, winning, winning. If you're into weird shit like the occult or serial killers or like choppers, which isn't that weird, but you know, the nexus of all these things together. If you're into stoner rock, doom metal, fucking vans, fucking, you know, drugs, antisocial behavior, street weaponry, any of that stuff, you will like Heavy. And check them out at heavy.bigcartel.com or on Instagram at Heavy Clothing. My man Zach runs a clothing company that is killer, no pun intended. Check them out. And if you're into motorbiking and building bikes and riding bikes and customizing bikes or just fucking around with bikes, you need to check out chopcult.com. They're online information clearinghouse for motorcycle-related information. They got a whole huge online message board and community based on this stuff, and it's all broken up by topics. So whatever you're looking for, you'll find general topics, and you'll find things under those threads, under those big topics. And also, they got an online swap meet where you can buy, sell, trade parts. They have a event page where you can find out about motorcycle-related events all across the country, all across the world, actually. And they have you can sign up for their newsletter, and they'll push information out to your inbox. And best of all of this is absolutely free. Costs you $0. They don't ask a credit card. There's nothing sketchy. So check them out at chopcult.com and on all social media, simply at chopcult. And if you're looking for motorcycle stuff, whether you're looking for clothing, parts, accessories, you want a chopper built, you need an oil change, whatever it is, come check out my shop, Choppahead. It's a full-service brick and mortar motorcycle shop, and we got an online component as well. So, you know, you want a T-shirt or whatever, hit us up. www.choppahead.com, CHOPPAHEAD. If you're in southeastern Massachusetts or in New England area and you need work done on your bike, hit us up. Whether you need an oil change or a full custom chopper or anything in between, we will hook you up. If you need parts, we're hooked up with pretty much everybody, so check us out. If you don't see it online or on the message board or on the website, sorry, I'm at the shop and I hear motherfuckers coming in and out. It's distracting me. But if there's a part you need for your bike, we can get it, we have it, or we can make it. So if you don't see it on the website, don't fret. Just give us a call or give us a shout. 508-995-6764. Our email's on the website. Check us out, choppahead.com. On Instagram at Choppahead. On Facebook at Choppahead Customs with a K. So CHOPPAHEAD KUSTOMS. Also, Pitchfork at pitchforkny.com. Another clothing brand, but also they got a little side record label going. They are a mainstay in the punk metal and hardcore scenes for well over a decade, so check them out. Whether you need a T-shirt or you want to get a 7-inch, they do this back to school limited 7-inch kind of series, right? And each one has an East Coast band on one side and the West Coast band on the other. Like bands like Murphy's Law, Rancid, Sick of It All, The Eulogy, Count Time, Thug Riot, all kinds of shit, stuff that you would really be interested in and dig. And they have all these limited colorway 7 inches, so check them out. They got a New York hardcore LP coming out soon as well. So pitchforkny.com and on Instagram at pitchforkny. Last but not least, check out bigtruthpodcast.com for more information on the show. If you got any ideas and you want to get involved, hit us up, bigtruthpodcast@gmail.com. Anything, any questions you got to ask, or people, any show suggestions or guest suggestions, I'm all ears. But let's wrap this up now and get into today's episode.
have a liftoff.
Yeah, once again, we have liftoff. I want to thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Big Truth Podcast. And I'm here with my man, Will Blackwood, who used to be an apprentice here at Choppahead years ago and was part of the Choppahead Scared Straight program. And he's one of two graduates of that program where one of our old apprentices became a state trooper in Maine and one became a lawyer. What's up, Will?
Not too much.
But it's fucking a weird world, right? Because we've had plenty of apprentices. Most have gone into other trades, but you and Sonda went into fucking the law world, not law enforcement. I saw you.
I think
saw you get a
Sandra
little.
and I are opposite ends of that spectrum.
So what I should say is Will went into to the law world, but he's in criminal defense and also into gun law. So this is going to be an interesting episode because we're going to talk about the state of gun-related law in Massachusetts, but also in the country in general. Well, actually, I should say in the country first, and then in Massachusetts specifically. And we'll talk about he's launching his own law firm this week. It actually, you really kicked it off today, right?
Today's the day. My 2 weeks have expired at my prior employment, so here we go.
Oh, fuck yeah, man. So, but it's cool. And then, and Will still comes in pretty regularly and fucking kicks around the shop and does some things on the lathe or the milling machine and fucking, we have fun here. But yeah, man. So, I don't know. What do you want to get into first? I mean, so obviously too, just for the record, it is Patriots Day. So there is not really, a more symbolic day or a metaphorical day for Will to come on here and talk about gun law. I don't think, you know what I mean? So why don't we just kick off and get into that? Or do you want to get into the whole kind of background of how you even got into law in the first place? What kind of but what kind of directed you to go into that as a profession, or what were your reasonings for, you know what I mean?
Sure.
I mean, you've been a lawyer for how many years now?
7 years now.
Yeah. And then, because you were going to law school when you were still working here.
I was. Well, my friends, not friends. I didn't really have many friends in law school. Wasn't really my scene. I don't watch sports on TV. I don't go to the bars. So why not come to the shop, do some welding, do some machining, build something with your hands. Yeah,
and Will built a pretty radical Triumph. I wouldn't really call it a chopper, but it is a chopper, but it's also kind of it's a hybrid.
Maybe a cafe racer, maybe
it's like a cafe chopper.
Cafe chopper. That makes sense.
Yeah, there we go. Has a lot of performance stuff, but a lot of custom stuff. You know what I mean? But yeah, man, you did a good job on that. By the way, we've talked about that.
I believe there was a feature on Chop Cult on it. If someone wants to take a look, you could probably find some pictures.
Absolutely, yeah. That was a few years back.
Oh yeah,
that was a few years back.
2013,
dude. But like I said earlier, before we even started recording, time is a blur for me. So feel free to correct me. Like something could be last week or 10 years ago, and it's fucking all the same for me at this point. Comes with age. But yeah, man, what was what even got you interested in going and pursuing a career in law? Because like you said, you're not cut from that like general cloth, and when you went there, it's not like, and I'm not trying to stereotype or pigeonhole all lawyers, because I got good friends that are lawyers, but a lot of them entertainment law and things like that, which is little weird offshoots. It's not like the general kind of sketchy lawyer stereotype that you see out there. But like, what even got you interested in going into law in the first place? Because I don't think I've ever even asked you this.
No, you haven't. So I think my dad probably has a lot to do with this. Anytime he'd get pulled over by the harbor master or something, he'd call them, "Oh, what's the problem today, Boy Scout?" He's always been sort of anti-authority, and I think more of that got ingrained in me than he would have preferred.
Yeah.
So I've always sort of had that attitude, and then as like a teenager, I was getting into a little bit of trouble. I got myself arrested for just this silly. My buddy and I made a detour with traffic cones, during the busiest, the summer season, just being dicks.
Yeah, just kid shit.
And the cops came, we ran, my buddy got away, and they're like, just tell us the truth. And, everything's going to be fine. And I told him everything. I'm like, oh, this is where we got the traffic cones. This is where we got that. This is where we got. The only thing I wouldn't tell him is where my buddy was or what my buddy's name was, because, you don't do that.
And quick lesson, and for everyone who's interested in Omerta's clothing line, fucking don't be a rat, code of silence shit, fucking, that's fucking holds true no matter what.
No matter what. I actually have a sticker on my car, Silence in the Face of Authority, before I knew there was any affiliation with the show or with you. I was into that like well beforehand. So live it.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And you don't rat out your friends, right? You take the hit, if you gotta, or just don't get caught if you're doing dirt.
Don't get caught. That's the best advice we can give you as a lawyer. Don't get caught. But anyway, so I was always told, be honest, be truthful, to, tell, and all will be absolved, or maybe I'd get some sort of slap on the wrist or something. But they threw the book at me. They charged me with everything they could possibly. They're like, oh, you could have killed someone if there was a medical emergency, this and all that. And I was just like, this is crazy to me. Like how,
it's a childhood prank.
Right. I was literally 16 years old.
Yeah.
And it just changed my whole perception of cops don't wear blue anymore. They wear black. It's a different, a different animal.
Yeah. It seems like it has been, for lack of a better word, militarized in the last couple decades more than than when we were younger, and
sure.
Bananas. Yeah.
So when I only applied to art schools because at that time in my life, I was like, oh, I'm going to be an industrial designer. That's what I wanted to do. And then that sort of changed my perspective. And the only not art school I applied to was UMass Amherst, where I, was fortunate enough to perform so well on my SATs that I got a free ride. So It was an easy decision to make, to sacrifice that little bit of a dream to start another one.
Yeah. So it was literally, you kind of had a little bit of a kind of an anti-authoritarian kind of slant ingrained in you from a young age. But then that one kind of episode is kind of flipped the switch for you where you're like, fuck this, I'm going to get into.
Well, and the more I looked into it, the more I found that I wasn't the only case where that was happening. That was happening to lots of people where really minor things were, getting blown way out of proportion.
Yeah.
And, I'm not about it.
No. All right. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, it's crazy how how one thing, and even then, being a 16-year-old and getting wrapped up with that, how that can kind of redirect a course in life, you know what I mean? So I don't know. Let that be a lesson to you motherfuckers out there. You be cool to people, right?
Yeah.
Just don't, especially if you say, hey, look, just tell us the truth. Everything's going to be cool. And then you get the kid tells you the truth. And then now you're throwing the book at him like a fucking cocksucker. Fuck you, motherfucker. You know what I mean? And did they say it was because you wouldn't give up who the other person was? Or?
Yeah, of course they said that. They said, tell us who your boy is, or we're going to make your life real hard. I'm like, I guess my life's going to get hard then.
Yeah. Well, that's lame. Yeah. It's not I don't know. It's funny because that, I don't know if I probably never told you this story, but when we were younger, we did the exact same thing, but in Providence. Mm-hmm. But we did it there was construction going on, so we took some of the sawhorses and all the barrels with the lights and all that shit in the signs. And in that area where Club Hell was, I think it might have still been Babyhead at the time. Statute of limitations is up on this, by the way, motherfucker, so don't worry about it. That area is that whole area, there's 4 or 5 clubs all right there, and a couple of bars and shit. And about 1 a.m, we did that, and we made this detour into a dead end. And so, all these clubs and bars let out at the exact same time. Yeah. And it was just fucking gridlock for fucking hours because no one could back up.
Yeah.
Because it's one-way streets and fucking crazy shit. And it was just fucking chaos for fucking hours. It was the funniest shit ever. And I won't name the other culprits in that, but you might know them. I don't know if you do, but anyone who knows us from high school will know who that is. But it was funny fucking shit, man.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't get I would have been fucking pissed if I had got a whole fucking case over that, because there was way more shit that we could have done. We could have got cases over than some dumb, like, childish prank shit.
Yeah.
Which was fucking hysterical. Not hysterical if you were fucking hammered and getting out of a club and stuck in that fucking traffic till like 4:30 in the morning or whatever. Till someone finally. Here's the thing about that type of shit. Like, people blindly follow authority so bad.
Yeah.
Like, no one thought just to move the sawhorse
Yeah.
and just fucking get out. It took hours before someone finally was
That's
like,
how
fuck it.
people are.
You know what I mean? It was like, oh, I can't go because there's a sawhorse and a detour sign and fucking a light. And it was like literally so stupid.
Yeah.
That was like a good social experiment. You know what I mean? Like, people follow.
That's what we are.
Yeah, they blindly follow fucking authority to the point of fucking nonsense, which could be said about some things that are going on in the world today, which I will not say because I don't want to be, whatever.
Blacklisted.
Yeah, and then like things on YouTube and whatnot and all that. Like they hide the especially if you say something in the first 5 minutes about certain things that are going on in the world today, like suddenly, episodes disappear or get taken out of the grid so you don't get seen or whatever, but dumb shit, whatever. But anyway, so you ended up going to law and then you specialized in criminal defense.
Criminal defense was that was why I wanted to go to law school. That's what I wanted to do. And then, after law school, it's like, so there's this public interest loan forgiveness, which is if you work in the public sector for 10 years, your loans get forgiven. If you're taking these low paying jobs, whether it's an ADA for $35K a year coming out of law school, which is crazy when you've got $200,000 worth of debt, or what I was hoping for was a public defender's office. But then all the kids from Harvard and Yale and all these places who have got $400,000 worth of debt are competing against me from little UMass.
Yeah.
And, Harvard, we're going to take that guy every time. So I couldn't get into the criminal defense world out of the gate. So I ended up working for a nonprofit regarding housing law. And that's sort of the direction my career took for a long time. I was in housing law basically from graduating until, recently, other than taking jobs on the side that I'd do for, friends or friends of friends.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And so like the breaking news is that you're, and we alluded to this earlier, or said it earlier, you have your own company, your own, well, what do you call it? Your own firm? Yeah. Your own firm now, which is WR Defense.
Yeah. WR Defense. It's a one-man show right now, but I hope to expand in the future. I'm not gonna come out super strong right out of the gate, but with time, I hope to expand.
Yeah, and now with criminal defense, is there like different subsets or specialties within that, or is it just kind of the whole gamut? I don't know about.
So it's pretty much the whole gamut. For murder cases, you need a special sort of certification if you're doing public defense. In order to do public defense, there's two ways of going about it. You can either work for the public defender's office, which is what I tried to do initially, or you can be what's called a bar advocate. They actually handle 80% of the public defense cases, where it's basically your subcontractor. Yeah. So I took the training like a few years ago to do that, and that's what I'm doing now. That's what I'm starting now.
So you do everything from petty theft to murder, is what you're saying?
Shy of murder. I don't have the murder certification yet. Well, I could, if someone wanted to pay me to. Yeah. I wouldn't, but maybe in the future.
Yeah. All right. And so anyone in Worcester County, you know what I mean? just unless you're doing murder, don't hit them up yet. But make sure you hit up the wrdefense.com, which literally just dropped today.
Yep.
Today, and it's WR Defense on Instagram as well.
Yep.
And I'll put all this in the show notes. So
thank you.
But Worcester County residents, take heed of that, and everyone outside of Massachusetts will get into some general shit as well, which maybe this is a good thing. So Will's an interesting guy because he's a law guy, but he's also very pro Second Amendment, and also but has a very balanced perspective on things, and and is very versed in a lot of the things going on in the world around gun and firearms law in the United States, and more specifically in Massachusetts, because, you know, in Massachusetts, you pretty much have to be an attorney to understand what the fuck is going on with law around firearms in Massachusetts. Sure. So let's talk a little bit about that. Like what got you interested in that? And, you know, what are some of the big things that are going on right now? Because I know that there are big things going on right now. Or are there really? Because, you know, or are people just getting fired up because a Democrat was elected, you know?
Well, it's pretty crazy. You've got more states becoming constitutional carry states than have ever, you know, it's sort of a funny thing because the Second Amendment reads very broadly, you know.
Yeah.
It's not like a lot of people think, oh, I've got my Second Amendment rights. It's sort of the wrong way of thinking about it, because the Constitution and the Bill of Rights don't exist to grant you rights. They exist to restrict the government.
Yeah.
So, you know, people think like, oh, I've got my Second Amendment rights. It's like, no. Those rights are inherent. The government is not allowed to do such and such a thing.
Yeah.
That's sort of a funny interpretation that people have been, putting forth for some time.
And before we go on into like more specifics about things, isn't that just an inherent problem in the perception of most of the populace today in general? Like, you know, you find that the government is elected to be our representative.
Sure.
And, you know, that's what it is, right? And then you have these unalienable rights, mm-hmm. and that shall not be infringed upon by the government. The government doesn't grant you these rights, but people think the government grants you these rights. It's like, no, these fucking rights exist. The government shall not infringe upon these rights. And, you know, no matter what, you know, you have after your name, whether you have a D or an R or an I or a fucking L or fucking Green Party, whatever it is, like, that's the fucking case. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that is... Things are keeping us divided that, you know, should be bringing us to fucking together. And, you know, you almost got to think, is there something going on to keep us divided? You know, but that's neither here nor there. But that's an important point for people to sometimes it's just important to just really think about these things and put it back into perspective. Like, the government isn't granting you rights. No. You know what I mean? Like, these are the rights of the people. Like, and they shall not be infringed upon is, I think, the sentence that gets overlooked a lot, you know, or it's just kind of like the government's like, don't look over and read that, right?
Well, it's also interesting because people misinterpret things too, because the Second Amendment also says a well-regulated militia, and people are like, oh, well-regulated, it's right in there. It means to regulate it. It's like, no, that's not what it means. That's not what they meant in any sort of context that you're reading this, other than whatever warped perception you're bringing to this.
Yeah.
Like if you read DC v. Heller, like, Antonin Scalia was very much an originalist, but like his explanation of, you know, breaking down the Second Amendment makes it unbelievably clear. You know, I don't know. I could go on about that.
No, and feel free to, like, you know what I mean? Just wherever there's no agenda here. It's just, you know, keep in mind that not everyone has a law degree, so like let's break everything down into lay nomenclature. Oh, dude, such a foul, like such a foul to keep your ringer on. I'm just fucking with you. If this was the Apprentice Challenge days, dude, there would have been fucking heavy ramifications for that. See, Will came in and it was an apprentice, and it was more in the shop hand days, less the apprentice days. The apprentice came with a certain level of abuse, and as you could see if you watched any of the old DVDs, and Will kind of came in after that and was like more on the shop hand program, where it was we were a little more refined and further along in life.
Elevated.
It was a little more elevated perspective on things, but, you know, no disrespect to any of the apprentices that went through the abuse, because that was a lot of fucking fun.
Proving grounds.
Yeah, it was proving grounds, right? And that's when apprenticeship still like existed in different trades, and now it's like everyone just deserves whatever. Yeah. At least that's the popular belief anyway, you know. Tattoo artists,
I was just going to say tattoo artists. The first thing people get tattooed is their hands now. It's like it used to work from the inside out. Now it works from the outside in.
Everything's wacky. Yeah. People start with throat and fucking hands, you know what I mean? And instead of like going there because there was no other space, but not even talking about getting tattooed. That's just more from a customer perspective or a tattoo aficionado perspective, but just people want to, someone goes and practices drawing and buys like a fucking scratcher kit off fucking whatever and starts playing, and then all of a sudden they're opening a shop and they've never even worked in a shop. You know what I mean? There's no, whereas before it was such guarded knowledge. The internet's great because the world's knowledge is out there, but the internet is also bad because the world's knowledge is out there, and you can't skip certain steps along the way to get along and stuff. You know what I mean? It just fucking sucks. Because imagine if anyone could just say, "Oh, I'm a fucking lawyer now." You know what I mean?
A lot of people do.
Oh, I'm
a lot
sure,
of people do. Oh, that reminds me of a funny story. Dorchester District Court, the funniest case I've ever seen in Dorchester District Court. Dorchester, if people don't know, is an area of Boston. How would you describe it?
Well, if we were talking like New York terms, it would be like a borough of Boston. Sure. Yeah. It's wedged right in between Roxbury and Southie. It's Southie meaning South Boston for everyone that's not in Massachusetts, whatever.
So in district court, you see everything. You see criminal cases, you see housing cases, you see family cases. A guy came in for a 209A, which is a restraining order on someone who lives with you. And the judge asks, why do you need this restraining order? And he goes, my girl's going to kill me. That sounds very serious, sir. Why is your girl going to kill you? Because I've been sleeping with her sister, and as soon as she finds out, she's going to kill me. And the judge goes, does she know yet? And the guy goes, no, she doesn't know yet, but when she does, rest assured, I'm a dead man. And the judge says, well, then there's no imminency, sir. I'm going to decline your 209A restraining order because there's no imminence. So don't go to court without a lawyer.
So this guy was representing himself.
He was representing himself. He just thought like, oh, my girl is going to kill me. Like if I'm going to get killed, like I should be able to get this restraining order. But he didn't know the terminology, the technology, what he needed. And the imminency was what he ended up losing on.
But, gotta give it to the guy. He was thinking ahead. He's a forward-thinking motherfucker right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, so fucking. Before we get even into gun law now, let's finish up what we were talking about in regards to the Second Amendment and as it reads. And as a lawyer, what's your viewpoint on, that's such a point of contention, and people want to argue about how the Second Amendment reads and what it really means. Like from your point, from a law perspective, just, because, I can read it and think one thing and someone else can read it and think another thing. Is it pretty clear cut, or is it kind of sticky and murky? And, because you mentioned Scalia and his breakdown of it, but can someone legally challenge that and have a basis for it? Or is it pretty irrefutable?
So there's a hierarchy in our sort of government system, and that's how the rules are applied. And the Supreme Court is the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
So what they say goes. It gets murkier the lower the court you go, because they can say this applies in this situation or this doesn't apply because of this, or this.
Yeah.
So the lower the court you go into, the murkier it gets. Because they're not held to the same sort of standard. But that's why it gets expensive, but you take it up to the next court, you appeal, you take it up to the next court. I'm sorry about that.
All right. So we had a little glitch, but you were talking about it gets a little murkier. Like Supreme Court makes like kind of the highest ruling, and then it gets a little murkier as you go down. But when you read the Second Amendment, is there a kind of really a grounded legal basis to challenge the meaning of it? Or is it like, you know what I mean?
Well, Biden in his latest statement on firearms said that no amendment is absolute and that everything's open to interpretation. And he cites the First Amendment isn't absolute. You can't yell fire in a crowded movie theater.
Yeah.
Which is true, but it also isn't, because what if there's a fire in a crowded movie theater? Like, you have to yell fire in a crowded movie theater if there's a fire in a crowded movie theater.
So is it more just because under false pretenses you couldn't?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, also, is the First Amendment really still in order when, you have things where people say something you don't agree with and they get silenced and canceled? You know what I mean? Like, is that really, does someone have a First Amendment basis to challenge that? It's crazy, right?
So it becomes gray because, again, the amendments protect actions from government actors.
Yeah.
So if you're on Facebook and they say this violates our policy
Policies.
provisions, that's not first. That if they were the government, then you'd say yes. But if they're not the government, you
True,
don't have
yeah.
any claims on that.
Yeah. Even though these things are as big or if not bigger or listened to more than the government, it's
Yeah,
just
they certainly hold more power.
Yeah, absolutely.
In sway elections.
Which was pretty blatantly shown last elections, or just blatantly, no matter who you voted for, just the fact that Twitter was like, yeah, we're shutting down the account of the acting president of the United States of America, saying, fuck you, motherfuckers, we get the power, right?
Yeah.
And I don't care who was in, you know what I mean, whether, it's your guy or not, you know what I mean? Like, that's kind of a pretty bold little fucking power move right there,
It really is.
during an election cycle, to be like, no, we're taking your count down. But, that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about the gun stuff. So, well-regulated militia, what does that mean in legalese? Like, you know what I mean? Or is that the thing? That's what can be contested.
They will break down every clause of the very simple sentence. So, and like I said, I defer to, Scalia on his breakdown in Heller v. DC, because he literally breaks down what every piece of it means.
Yeah.
In his eyes, and granted, he's a conservative, or he was, unfortunately, rest in peace, a conservative justice. His logic is flawless. Like that's what people love or love and hate about him. You can't argue it.
Yeah. Well, but for me, right? So when people say, "Well, guns," that's for hunting, and people's, back then they had to have a gun to hunt or to protect themselves from wild animals. The terms "well-regulated militia" doesn't imply hunting in any way, shape, or form. You know what I mean? Like,
well, this it's couldn't be more perfect timing. It's Patriots Day today, the 19th of April. It's usually the third Monday of April, but it actually was April 19th, 1775. The shot heard around the world was the first shot of the Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
Like, people praise the 4th of July as our Declaration of Independence, but the Declaration of Independence was written by the aristocrats of the time. It wasn't written by the farmers. It wasn't written by the working man. The working man was out there at, Bunker Hill, fighting the fight. They were the ones getting killed. They're the ones doing that. So, I think Patriots Day is really the working man's 4th of July.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
Like, the Declaration of Independence says all men are created equal, but 41 of the 56 signers were slave owners. Like, how can...
We were kind of talking about this a little bit early on one of the other episodes. But, a lot of those guys also put a lot on the line, even though, because looking at it from the lens of now.
Sure.
And I'm not condoning any of this shit, right? Like, I'm not condoning slavery, but looking at it from the lens of the 1770s, that was a fairly commonplace type of thing compared to now. You know what I mean? So, and it is fucked up that these dudes saying all men are created equal, but what was the definition of man at that point, right?
Sure.
But the thing is, I don't know where I'm going with this, but like what I'm saying, I'm not condoning that aspect of what they were talking about. But when you think of all men now in the totality of humankind, you know what I mean? So you say all humans are are created equal, just looking at it from the lens of now. But, it gets so sticky because even now it's like, well, is that what they intended? Blah, blah, blah. But what I was just saying is those guys, even though they, like you said, they were the aristocracy of everything, they've still put a lot on the line to kind of spark the revolution and support it and go through it. You know what I mean? Like, because they had a lot to lose as well.
I agree, but more than a year beforehand, the blue-collar guys were doing the fighting.
Absolutely. No. And I'm not taking it away. All I was just this was like a little addendum that, even the aristocrats had skin in the game.
Sure, everyone had skin in the game.
But, less of them were doing we're getting in the dirt.
Sure.
But that's always the case, right?
Always
like
the case.
that's always the case. Right now, you know, you don't see the son of a senator unless he actively enlists on his own. Like, you know, they're not getting involved in the shit. You know what I mean? Like, you know, even when shit was going on, whether it was in Iraq or whatever in our lifetimes, you know, unless they actively volunteered to serve, like, you know, they get out of a lot of shit. You know what I mean? Because it's fucking sad that, you know, I don't know how our kind of, and I'm not saying always, but like our representatives used to be representatives from the community. You know, when you think about the farmers that gave up months of their lives to go represent us, they almost kind of hated to do it because it was getting away from their regular job. And then they went back to the regular job, to now full-time politicians that are exempting themselves from things that they're forcing on the American people and making them.
Let's put a vote on giving ourselves a raise.
Yeah. Like worlds are like, I want to give myself a raise. How do I do that? Right. You know what I mean? It's fucking crazy. Right. And, or just like, we're going to put down this healthcare plan, but we're going to write ourselves out of it. We don't have to participate in that, you know, or whatever. You know, and it's both sides of the coin on this, motherfuckers. Don't think I'm getting political, like, and choosing a side. Both sides of the coin sign off on this bullshit. They, at the end of the day, you know, they put themselves above us. Like, I don't know what happens when you get in the Senate or whatever. Like, you just get this mindset, like, where you're above the average person, or even fucking as the current crisis has showed us, even, you know, mayors and governors have, you know, do as I say, not as I do type of shit. You know what I mean? And we've seen that with Newsom and all kinds of people, Pelosi, everybody. You know, we've seen all kinds of shit where, you know, they've done hypocritical actions. Don't forget, these motherfuckers are humans and they're just people, and you know, they do the same bullshit we all do.
People with addresses.
Yeah, yeah. Take that however you will. But yeah, so getting into kind of things going on, you know, right now, you were talking about offline before we even started. You were talking about some of the stuff that kind of Biden is pushing through right now, and only when we say pushing through, we mean by executive order, not by putting it through other legal processes where it goes through the House, Senate, you know, things like that. What's some of the stuff going on right now so people know? Because there's a lot of, you know, what I want to, you know, from your legal perspective, like as a professional, it's important to get to the crux of this matter, because there's a lot of hype going on right now where, you know, there's massive like runs on ammo and guns because people are afraid. Do they have a reason to be afraid? Is it just kind of bullshit? Is it overreacting? Like, you know, what's going on in the world as far as like gun regulation and things right now?
So it's a really interesting time. I don't even know where to begin. I guess we'll start with some of his executive orders.
Yeah.
So a high priority for him is 80% at home manufacture of firearms. He says that guns can be made in as little as 30 seconds or 30 minutes or something like that. He said something real ridiculous. As a hobbyist, you know, I like to make firearms myself. I comply with all of the rules and regulations, all the laws. Within 10 days of it being able to fire in Massachusetts, you're to register your firearm with the state. I've done that. So any at-home manufacturers, make sure you comply with your local regulations, because, you know, you can buy parts kits, you can buy these things.
And that's where things get kind of weird, right? Because you have these orders coming at the federal level, but then you have state laws, which can vary.
Sure.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, like some laws are open carries. Some states are open carries. Some states are, you know, license, you know, this and that. And even with what we're talking about right now specifically is the 80% lowers, you know, or quote unquote ghost guns or whatever, where you can buy a gun that's 80% complete, or the lower, which is 80% complete, and with a couple of operations, whether it was with a drill or a drill press or a lathe or a mill or whatever, you can make it into a functional gun. You know, more than that, you know, with those operations plus some assembly, you can make it into a functional gun.
Sure.
But what 80% means, it's 80%.
It means they submit a model to the ATF and they say, is this a firearm or is this not a firearm? And if the ATF says this is a firearm, then it's too much machining. They have to send it back without the safety hole cut or without the slide rails cut or something, or the deck a little higher. So the deck needs to come down. And when they get to that point, So 80% is really subjective because there's no measurable.
Yeah.
I suppose someone could calculate exactly how much is 80% of the work to be done, but it's basically they just send something into the ATF and the ATF says this is a firearm or this isn't a firearm.
Yeah.
And if it isn't, great. Then they sell them to everybody because then it's they used to call them paperweights.
Yeah.
Before the term 80% came, you could buy a paperweight AR-15 or a paperweight 1911 or a paperweight Glock.
Yeah. Yeah, which means it wasn't functioning at that point. You have to do some things to it to make it.
Right.
So what's going on in the pipeline with that?
So on April 8th, Biden says within 30 days he wants the Department of Justice to come up with some sort of regulation on firearms kits.
Yeah.
So what that means is anyone's guess because, like I said, 80% is just a made-up number. That's not really what they go by. They go by, is it a firearm or isn't a firearm? And if they send it to the ATF and it isn't a firearm, how do you regulate that? It's the same as a garden hose,
Yeah.
This isn't a firearm, they could send a garden hose to the ATF. This isn't a firearm,
Yeah, yeah.
This is just a piece of metal. At some point, if they're gonna target the terminology for 80%, I sent you a text before that the first guy to sell 79% kits is going to be a millionaire.
Yeah. So that's something to just kind of keep an eye out on because it's going to be coming down the pipeline pretty soon. What they're going to whatever it is they're going to try and do.
Yeah.
As far as what means what's a kit, what's a blah blah blah. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So. I don't know.
Yeah, so that's one of his things that we have to look forward to.
So a quick question before we get off the 80% stuff. What you mentioned was in the state of Massachusetts, if you take one of those lowers, an 80% lower, and you make it, or a kit, you buy a kit that has a lower and all the parts with the upper and this and that, but you still have to do some machine operations to make it a functional gun. People might not know that, state regulations vary. Like if you're in Massachusetts and you do that, like you have to register it with a FFL or with
no, you can e-register. I forget what the website is. I should know this.
Yeah, but it's within 10 days.
Within 10 days of it being able to fire.
Yeah. Now, if you haven't tested the gun, does that mean it's able to fire? Like you don't know, right?
Don't know. No.
Yeah.
It's a poorly written law.
So that's the problem with a lot of these laws and a lot of these politicians, because there's a lot of gray areas. There's a lot of people that are reacting, I think, on emotion or trying to be on the right side of whatever they feel their constituency wants. And they don't have a lot of knowledge about these firearms or whatnot. Because, how many times have you heard them talk about automatic firearms when they mean semi-automatic? And it's like, now, are they that dumb or that uninformed or ignorant of what that means? Or are they just saying that to scare the public? Who knows? You know what I mean? I don't know. You know what I mean? But yeah, so, it's important to know no matter what state you're in, the regulations are so different and it can be crazy and it's hard to keep up with, especially in a state like Massachusetts where there's so many regulations and it's changing all the time. And it's not only statewide, it varies by county or city or town you're in, when you're trying to get licensing, and that's a whole other thing we can talk about. But yeah, so, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I was just trying to make a clarifying point for people that might not have thought about some of this stuff before. Like, I didn't know about that. Within 10 days, you have to register your thing. You know what I mean? Luckily, I've never made a ghost gun, you know what I mean? Or turned an 80% into a functioning firearm.
Yeah, neither have I.
Yeah. Well, you said but when you did, you've registered it, and that's good, but how many people can keep up on all these laws? It's fucking nuts. But, so that's something that's coming down the pipeline that affects everybody as a whole in the country. Now, so keep an eye on that. When did he want that by?
Within, so it could be sooner, within 30 days of April 8th.
Yeah. So sometime between now and May, early May, first week of May, we'll know more what's going on.
I think the DOJ is going to have a real hard time with it because it's like, if it's not a firearm, what do you regulate it as?
Yeah. Now, do you think that's just him trying to be like, look, I'm trying to get shit done, and knowing that shit can't get done really with that because of what you just said? Like, it's not a firearm. There's nothing you can really do to regulate it at this point. Or, like, what's your take from a legal standpoint of what's going to happen with this?
From a legal standpoint, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
I think he's just posturing.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean he's not going to try.
Yeah. No.
And let's say he forces something through, like it's going to stand until someone takes it through the courts to say that it's not constitutional.
How long would something like that take to get through the courts? Like roughly. I know it's a little different in these times of with what's going on now.
Sure.
But like
in Texas, it would probably take 2 weeks.
Okay.
In Massachusetts, it would probably take 2 years.
Yeah.
Probably more.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I mean. So yeah.
Because the district court in Texas is going to be like, get out of here with this silliness. A district court in Massachusetts is going to be like, of course this is legal, and then you're going to have to go to the appeals court, and then the Supreme Court, and then to the first district court, and then U.S. Supreme Court.
So how would that work? Like, would it wouldn't go through that until someone challenged it?
Yeah.
So would someone
would have to be charged. Someone would have to be charged with violating it. And then because you couldn't just challenge it on its face, you'd have to have standing. Standing means that you've got, a legitimate issue.
Which sucks because it means that someone probably wouldn't be charged with something like this unless it was in one of the states that has a lot of bullshit quagmire laws around it.
Exactly.
Because in Texas, they won't even bring it up.
Right.
Whereas in here, it would be like, well, blah, blah, blah. And then it would kind of go, all right. This is things where if you don't believe this should be an issue, maybe stop preemptively writing motherfuckers, locally to your local politicians or whatever. I guess let's break it down before we even get into more of this. Like fundamentally, as a lawyer, but also as someone who's, a gun, someone who owns guns and is a recreationally into
an enthusiast.
Enthusiast, yeah. You like to you like to like customize or play around and you don't just like shooting. You actually like being involved in a lot of the processes of firearms as an enthusiast. Like, what's your take on what are some of the biggest kind of issues going on as far as guns are? Before we even say issues, what are some of the biggest kind of misconceptions that you see out there with law, but not even with law, but like law versus like public misconceptions of things? Like,
well, everyone thinks an AR-15 is an M16. They think that every, as you mentioned before, that every semi-auto rifle is a full auto rifle. That's not true. I don't know, that people think that a 30-round magazine is a high-capacity magazine when that's like a standard issue magazine. Yeah. That's like a big one. Or Glock mags for that matter. In Massachusetts, they're limited to 10 unless they were made before 94, I think, as pre-ban. That's sort of silly. And anyone who does any sort of like competitive shooting knows how fast a mag change is. It's not going to make that like a millisecond of a difference for someone who's trained.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess from a legal standpoint, when you see a lot of these firearm kind of rules or legislation or regulations come through, like, what are they actually doing and how effective, like, are they? Given, like, what you just said, like, you know what I mean? You're like, oh, you're going to keep it to 10-round capacity when someone knows you can have 100 10-round clips on you and just keep changing them really fast. You know what I mean? Like, like, what's the point of all these? I feel my gut reaction is that, like, a lot of this is just lip service so people feel like they're doing something. Sure. And, at the end of the day, all these regulations do, like, and I'm not staunch in this. Like, I'm open for debate. Like, I encourage people to talk to me or talk to us, and with evidence and kind of, logic. But it seems to me that gun laws or gun regulations only affect law-abiding gun owners.
Sure. criminals.
The
don't care what
criminals
the
are just
laws
going, they're buying some shit on the street for half the price, and they don't give a fuck. You know, they're not, oh shit, I can only have 10 rounds, so I better just buy the 10-round clip. You know what I mean? Like, so like, what's even the point at the end of the day? You know, that's what I don't get. Like, because, you know, gun laws and gun regulations are only affecting the people that are going to follow the law or follow the regulations.
The same can be said of any law.
I know, yeah, I know. But to me, at the end of the day, that it's such a hot point in the country right now where people are like, oh, some people are like, fuck you, I want any gun and I should have any fucking gun that I want. And then there are other people like, people shouldn't have no guns. You know what I mean? No one should have any firearms because you don't need a gun to survive anymore and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a quagmire, dude. Like, or like, what's there to do? You know, like, what can you do? Like, are these regulations coming in just to kind of keep people happy? You know what I mean? Like, or
it doesn't make any sense to me because the areas where there's the strictest gun control, like Chicago, have the highest murder rates of anywhere almost in the world. Like,
DC, Chicago,
DC,
New York,
right.
yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. Like, on its face, you should see, like, the more regulations you have, the more like, it's a very simple pattern to see, a very simple trend to see. It's not, and the excuse is always, oh, but they're just bringing guns in from neighboring states. Well, like, I think that's patently false because then there would be violence in the neighboring states and there isn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, do you think, like, people, I feel like people falsely blame the guns for, you know, we have a habit in American culture to deal with symptoms, but not the actual disease.
Yeah.
So something comes out like, oh, you better get this vaccination, or you better take this pill, or you better take this pharmaceutical, or you better do this, you know, or you better take this, you know, psychoactive material, you better do this. Instead of addressing what the problem is, like, you're masking the symptoms. And I feel like that's kind of, in a way, what gun regulations do. They're masking the, like, it's easy to say, oh, it's because these guys have guns, they can do this, or, you know, and there's more crime and there's more murder and stuff. But it's like, the gun didn't murder anyone. The gun didn't pull its own trigger.
Sure.
And in countries where there are stricter gun laws, these things still happen, but they happen more brutally with like knives or fucking blunt force fucking trauma or whatever it is. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, people fucking clubbing people or stabbing people to death. The whole term run amok comes from like an Asian culture where people would do that with fucking knives. You know what I mean? Like, it's fucking crazy, right? I don't know, man. It's such a sticky situation because I feel like so much emotion gets in this and gets the logic clouded.
Yeah, well, in Biden's April 8th speech, he said that if he could get one thing through, it would be to end the immunity of firearms manufacturers, which is the same as saying that car manufacturers should be held liable for drunk drivers. The manufacturers, if anything, shows how great their product works. You know, like, why would they be liable? Why would they be liable?
That's a little, yeah, it's kind of a fucked up logic, but it's a logic, you know what I mean?
Sure.
But, you know, here's the thing. They want to say that. And it's like, are they just saying that because the gun manufacturers aren't paying as much as the pharmaceutical lobbies? Because you can give out a vaccine that's not FDA approved, but with any vaccine manufacturer, there's a clause in there that they cannot be held liable for any things that happen as a result of that vaccine. That's not conspiracy theory or anything like that. Look it up. Like, any vaccine you take, if something happens to you, you grow a third arm, your dick falls off, you fucking get gangrene of the genitals, you fucking get the flu, you get fucking emphysema, whatever it is. You know, I'm just making up a list of things. You have no legal recourse to the vaccine manufacturer. But if someone shoots someone with a gun, now they want to sue the gun manufacturer. To me, that's just a sign of like, people are just fucking lawsuit fucking happy. I don't know, you know, or falsely blaming, you know, changing the blame. Like, people are going to use whatever tools are available to them. But what we're not dealing with is, what is the root of crime? What is the root of mental illness? What is the root of all these problems that we're just trying to address the symptoms of, rather than, you know what I mean? Like, someone gets a headache, they take a fucking Tylenol. Tylenol mask the symptoms of the headache, but it doesn't get what was it that caused the fucking headache.
It won't rehydrate you.
Yeah, it won't rehydrate you or take the stress away or whatever it was that caused that headache. And, people want to blame the gun when the gun didn't, who was it that pulled the trigger and what was going on that caused them to pull that trigger? You know what I mean? Was it something with psychosis, or was it crime because of someone just didn't have money and they were trying to rob someone to get money, or whatever it was? Was it poverty? Was it this and that? And these are things we just need to think about, like in whole with everything, like, you know what I mean? Like, fucking, if you live better and you better yourself, you're going to be less apt to be unhealthy. And I know it's easier said than done, and everyone wants to say, well, you're coming from an advantage position. I ain't coming from a fucking advantage position, motherfuckers. Like, you know what I mean? Like, anything you want to do, if you put your mind to it, you can do it. And, we all got shit we can work on ourselves. This is, now I'm bringing it to the individual level, but in the societal level, we need to stop looking at symptoms and start looking at the fucking root causes of problems, and not feeling good because we addressed a symptom and feeling heroic about that, because that ain't fucking getting anybody anywhere, and it's just causing a whole lot of fucking quagmire and fucking muck in the fucking system, and making things murkier than it needs to be. But there's a lot of people that profit off that. There's a lot of people that get political careers and advancement off that. And, I don't know. I'm not trying to go on a diatribe here, but what are some of the other things going on in gun law right now that people should be aware of, or kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, sure. Well,
concerned about, I guess, or just aware of.
Well, just carrying on with the Biden executive orders, another one was.
How many are there related to?
I don't know. I'm just shooting from memory.
Yeah.
There's the ghost guns, the pistol braces, the red flags. I don't know. I'm just shooting from the hip. I'm sorry. So I didn't come with notes or anything.
No, it's fine. What were you going to next then?
Pistol braces on AR-15s. That's something he wants the Department of Justice to look at and come with a resolution within 60 days. So now, this is something that Massachusetts isn't really going to be affected by, because pistol ARs aren't really relevant, but to the rest of the country, it is relevant.
And it's not relevant here because it's already not something that's legal in the state of Massachusetts.
Well, it's legal, but it's really unusual. You can't have a front foregrip, and it has to be within under a certain weight. So it basically makes it into a useless or an unusable, AR.
Yeah,
they have them, they exist, but they're real silly looking.
So kind of maybe talk a little bit about the detail of that. Like what specific ARs is this going to be, or not ARs, but what specific guns is this going to be kind of applicable to?
So anytime someone puts what's called a pistol brace, which is an arm stabilizing bar, which was invented for disabled people to shoot an AR-15 if they only had one arm, they couldn't hold it with two arms, usually to Velcro around their arm and hold the thing, and it would stabilize. It's a stabilizing brace. But what people are doing, which no one should do, is they can hold them to their shoulder as if they're a buttstock, which makes it similar to a short-barreled rifle, which is a Class 3 firearm, which involves a lot more, hoops to jump through, let's say.
Yeah. What, from your opinion, like when we talk about AR and AR pistols, like when we get into like SBRs and short-barreled rifles, like what is the purpose behind the meaning of what is the purpose of regulating the barrel length on a rifle?
So this comes from the National Firearms Act of 1934. This is in the Prohibition era. This is when gangsters are, running amok in the streets. And they were concealing Thompson submachine guns, sawed-off shotguns, that sort of thing.
Okay.
And the government says, this is crazy. We got to stop. We got to make these things so prohibitively expensive that, first of all, if someone violates this, they're going to do 10 years in jail.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. Not that the criminals care. It didn't stop any of them.
Yeah.
But, maybe it discouraged some people. So they said in order to have one of these regulated items, you're going to have to pay a $200 tax, which back in 1934 was such an astronomical amount of money
Yeah.
that they're basically like, no one's going to do it now. Now we've got them, which is sort of a funny way of regulating it. But the dollar amount never changed. It didn't account for inflation. So now people can file for, a short barrel rifle or a short barrel shot. Well, not in Massachusetts. You can't have a short barrel shotgun in Massachusetts, unfortunately. But in other states, short barrel shotgun, that sort of thing.
And what's the length of the barrel where it is considered now short barrel?
Anything less than 16 inches.
Okay.
You could have a 14.5-inch barrel with a pinned muzzle brake, not a flash hider, but a compensator in Massachusetts. Again, Massachusetts specific.
Yeah.
You could have that. So anything under 16 inches or 18 inches for a shotgun, I believe.
Yeah. Somewhere around there. Now, this is where the idiocy of some of these laws comes into place, because you could have, and I'm just making up a stupid number, you could have 100 10-round clips on you, all loaded, all ready to roll, and you're fine. You're in legal confines. You could have one 15-round clip on you in Massachusetts, and you're doing 10 years in fucking jail, potentially.
I don't know what the violation of that is.
But isn't it like that?
It could be, but I don't want to say the law.
Yeah. Well, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But but you could do jail time. The number of years is negotiable, but you could do time because you have one 15-round clip.
Yeah.
Or magazine or whatever, and or you could have 100 10 rounds and you'd be fine.
Yep.
And this is where the stupidity of some of these laws comes into place. I'm just pointing out. Logically, you know what I mean? Whatever you believe, logically, the laws are so stupid and fucked up and skewed, and it's just trying to patch. It's like patchwork to try and fix something, but what you're trying to fix, you're not really addressing because you're only addressing the symptoms and not the actual issue. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so we got the 80% or the gun kit thing, the AR brace, and what was the other one?
So just tying the AR brace to the short barrel rifle situation. If you could have an AR built as a pistol and it's no longer qualified as a short barrel rifle, so that's why people are building these ARs as pistols, because they can have the shorter barrel, but they don't have to go through the process and procedure to file for an SBR.
So what's the difference between a pistol and a short barrel rifle?
The type of stock it has.
Okay.
So like a regular conventional rifle stock on a pistol length barrel is an SBR, but if you have a stabilizing brace, then it's a pistol.
But in Massachusetts, can you have?
So Massachusetts has its own regulations regarding weight and other restrictions.
Okay, that's what you're talking about.
That make it not really relevant.
Yeah.
And there's got to be people out there in Massachusetts who just don't know any of this, who just read online and they're like, oh, I'm going to build a pistol AR, and they just go about doing all this, and they're not even aware that they're breaking all these laws in Massachusetts, because federally they're perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And they're they could go to the range for years with it and not have any issue, and then just one day, they get pulled over. Do you have any weapons in the car, sir? And then get themselves in all sorts of trouble.
Yeah. And that's what's crazy is, more than anything, especially you live in an overregulated state, you really need to be up on these laws, or you could fuck yourself really bad without even knowing.
Yeah, totally in it. Unfortunately, ignorance is not a defense.
Yeah. And this is coming from a defense attorney, so he knows, right? and obviously, and then again, even as you navigate through legal systems, you're at the whim of whoever you're standing in front of or whoever's standing beside you. Mm-hmm. And, so someone might be, oh, this is your first offense. You really didn't know. And they might be lenient on you, or they might throw the book at you, or they might, or they, and it's crazy. At the end of the day, don't forget, motherfuckers are just people, and, they could have a shitty day, and that could make your day a whole lot shittier if you're involved with them. you know, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this. It's just fucking crazy, dude. There's a lot it's just so much to think about that my mind starts going in a million fucking directions at once. And it's pretty sad, man. Sad state of the world, you know, like, but yeah. And I always get bummed out because I'm like, the first shot of the revolution was fired about 45 minutes from here in the state of Massachusetts. And now we're like, one of the most like fucking un-American states that there is. Like, you know what I mean? You know, we're in cahoots with like
246 years today.
Yeah, California. Exactly. Yeah, but we're in cahoots with like states like California and New York that are so overregulated that, you know, it makes it almost impossible to live here. But if I wasn't so rooted here with friends and family and fucking whatnot, you know, it'd be way easier to go to a more free state. And when I say free state, I'm not just talking about guns, you know, and blah, blah, blah. I'm talking about anything. Like, try opening a business in Massachusetts and then go to Maine or something and try opening a business in Maine and, you know, see what the difference is in the legislative hoops that you will jump through and the amount of money you'll be spending on permits and fucking dealing with your town or city and you know, come back to me and you know what I mean? And refute what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Because I welcome it.
Maine is both a constitutional carry state and a state that observes Patriots Day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shout out to Sonder.
Yeah. Shout out to Sonder, being a state trooper up in Maine. He
doesn't have to enforce the silly gun laws, you know? It's constitutional carry. He's in a good place.
So tell people what constitutional carry means in regards to state law in regards to guns.
Sure. So constitutional carry means they just take the Constitution at its face. As long as you're not a prohibited person, being like a felon or, you know, someone maybe with a domestic or something. I forget what the exact restrictions are. It's probably going to vary from state to state, but they don't issue licenses to carry. If you're a citizen of that state, you can just go into a gun store and buy a gun because the Constitution says shall not be infringed. So they impose no infringements. In Massachusetts, it's $100. That sounds like an infringement to me, but who am I to say?
Yeah. And, you know, also as someone who is a licensed gun owner in the state of Massachusetts, I know you're also at the whim of the local police chief in the town you reside in. And, you know, you hear the horror stories of like, well, not the horror stories, but the varying stories of like, you know, one chief might be friendly to guns, so you apply for your firearms. You've done everything right, and you fill out your application, and you got all your qualifications and whatnot.
Sure.
And you get your license in a month or 2 months or whatever. And then there's some places where you can wait 2 years, or some places where they're going to say, no, fuck you, you don't need a gun.
Well, Massachusetts is the opposite of a constitutional carry.
Yeah.
It's a may issue, not a shall issue. So FID cards are shall issue. So if you go and apply for an FID card, which doesn't give you the same, you can't buy everything that you can with an LTC.
Yeah.
But you shall get an FID provided you're not a prohibited person.
Yeah. Is that their way around the shall not be infringed upon kind of rule?
It may be, but I mean, they're infringing on someone's rights to carry a pistol. You know? So it's like not, and Heller v. DC was specifically about a pistol.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting issue. But yeah, I get calls from people all the time about licensing issues, and they're honestly cases I would love to take because it's like something I'm passionate about and something I'm knowledgeable about. But I before I take it, I tell them, this is going to be expensive for you. Is it worth it to pay out a lot of time, a lot of money, and very likely appeals? Because the courts, especially the lower courts, are just going to go with what, you know, the chief of police said no for whatever reason he may have had, you know?
Yeah.
Like and you have to appeal it, you know? It's not an easy process if you're fighting the police.
Yeah. And now, so someone tries to get a license and they're in a place where, you know, for whatever reason they're denied, but they're not a prohibited person, so they appeal it. Now, these court costs are going to just kind of keep going up. And then it's also they're paying for your hourly rate or whatever it is, right? So is that?
Oh, it's purely hourly. The filing fees aren't that expensive. It's paying for an attorney, you know, hourly to do all these things for you. Yeah,
yeah, it's bananas, man. But then you can go like literally 45 minutes away, and it's like a whole different world.
Yeah, go to New Hampshire, it's constitutional carry. Go to Maine, it's constitutional carry. Go to Vermont, it's constitutional carry.
Yeah, and you know, Vermont's one of the most liberal states there is. You know what I mean? Like as
Vermont
far as
makes a lot of sense. If I move anywhere, it's going to be Vermont.
yeah, and it's it's just very bizarre. But I guess that's also the benefit of having, the state versus federal power, right? Like if you don't agree with a state, you can always move.
Yep.
To a state that you more agree with.
Easier said than done for you and I.
Yeah, exactly. But that's why you see mass exodus from like New York and California right now.
Yep.
That's why like
people are moving to New Hampshire every day.
Yeah. And in Maine, so much to the point that Maine wants to cut, the people that live in northern Maine want to cut southern Maine off and just call it Massachusetts South or whatever, or Massachusetts North or whatever it was.
Maine was originally part of Massachusetts, so that would make sense.
Yeah, but like the northern maniacs, what's up, motherfuckers up in Maine? They that's kind of a point of contention there, where they want to cut the southern part of Maine off and just give it to Massachusetts again.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. But like, it's so crazy because people's visceral reaction, I don't think they're coming from a bad place. I think they're just coming from a place of ignorance. And I'm not saying that in a demeaning way. I just mean ignorance, meaning lack of knowledge.
Sure.
And so their reactions towards guns are more visceral and emotional rather than based on logic or reasoning, And so, and it just feels good to be like, yeah, guns kill people. Fuck guns. You can't have guns.
Mm-hmm. It's a very simplistic perspective.
It is. But that's how, unfortunately, I feel like that's what's happening more and more with all kinds of topics. You know what I mean? People's visceral reaction based on emotion and not thought or reason. And, if I have any appeal to say to people listening, I would hope that most of the people listening to this can have a little bit more thought and logic to things. But, think things out more before you just go with your gut reaction to shit. You know what I mean? And if you have a gut reaction to something, then be like, okay, why am I having this reaction? And let's think about it. And how can I make my argument more logical? Because logic and reason is what wins the day to me.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And unfortunately, a lot of the shit getting passed is very fucking illogical. Yep. And, our talking today is just kind of pointing some of that shit out, just so you're aware of shit. You know what I mean? And it's like, guns don't kill people. People kill people. And they'll use whatever tool they have. And why do people kill people? Well, there's a million fucking reasons for that. Whether it's fucking people have mental illness or fucking, poverty or whatever, or crimes of passion, rage, fucking whatever. You know what I mean? But you're blaming the tool for something that somebody else did. Well, but if they didn't have a gun, they couldn't kill as many people. There's motherfuckers that kill.
Motivated.
Yeah. There's people that kill plenty of people with knives in one sitting. You know what I mean? Like, or whatever it is. You can't outlaw knives. You can't outlaw screwdrivers. You can't outlaw everything. What is the point in Massachusetts? And what is this is a question I have. And someone actually brought this up to me earlier because I said you were coming on later. Speaking of knives, do you know what the actual law is in Massachusetts about like the actual length of a knife you can have? Is it 3.5 inches or something?
I don't know. I'm
okay.
sorry. I'm not.
Yeah, I know you're a gun guy. You're not a knife guy. Yeah.
I like knives. I have knives. I don't.
But that's another gray, murky area. Like,
I could be in trouble because I don't know. It's not an area that I'm specialized in.
And then they also said it was like the length of your palm or this and that. And there's all kinds of wacky shit. Like, you know what I mean? And it's like,
it might even be different for folding knives than for fixed blade.
Yeah. That's something got to look into a little bit more. And, I'm probably definitely in violation of that one somewhere. You know what I mean? I'm not meaning shit I carry, but knives I possess. Sure. I definitely have knives that are longer than 3 inches or 3.
I mean, I got a machete for clearing brush.
Yeah. I guess it's different if you have it and you're out there cutting brush, whether you're walking around with it strapped to your leg. But at some point, you have to carry it to the brush.
That's true.
That's
true.
I mean, that's the problem with all this shit. You know what I mean? It's like you're trying to deal with the tool and not the intent, and it just gets wacky and sticky, man.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to kind of call to an end of like quick fixes. You know what I mean? And dealing with symptoms and not dealing with the actual issues. Whether it's poverty or mental illness or whatever the fuck it is. You can't sue. Can you sue some of these pharmaceuticals for having these psychoactive drugs that You know what I mean? That it making people worse. You know what I mean? Like I don't think so. Maybe you can. I don't know. I know you can't sue.
Not my field. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. But I'm just saying. I'm just bringing up like points. You know what I mean? It's like just stuff to think about. What else? What else is going on in the world of gun ownership in the United States?
Sure. So there are more executive orders. Biden wants to see red flag laws, which basically means that if anyone, it's basically the call on your neighbor sort of violations, where if someone has reason to think that someone could be a hazard to themselves or others, they can call their police and have your firearms taken away from you, which is concerning for a number of reasons. I don't know what they're going to do with that.
Well, that seems like a whole hell a lot of gray area right there to kind of parse through, and that can be, when I say gray area, I mean very subjective enforcement of that. Like, you know, it's going to be hard to write some clear-cut guidelines for that.
Yeah, well, I think the legislature has been sort of reluctant to embrace any of that idea, but that's still what he wants.
Huh. Now, what are some of the ways that gun owners can kind of protect themselves and their investments? Because some of these things are collectors and go up in value and whatnot, or, you know, like sometimes people have multiple guns and they want to be able to protect their assets. I know in the past, you know, you had talked to us, I had talked to you about gun trusts and things like that. Is that stuff still active and effective? Like,
sure. So not originally. My original interest in gun trusts was for Class 3 filings to apply for SBRs because prior to July 13th, 2016, I believe, don't quote me on that, but more or less prior to then, you could apply as a legal entity rather than an individual, and that made a real big difference in Massachusetts because as a legal entity, you didn't need the chief of police approval to apply to make a short barrel rifle. So it was sort of a way to bypass some of the red tape.
But you still needed approval, but not from, it was just more the tax stamp from the federal level?
Right. It's only federal. You could bypass.
So people say, oh, now it's not legal. It's still illegal, but now you're federally legal, but you can kind of bypass some of the rules of the state.
Well, so the ATF, that's how it was, but the ATF made a rule in January 2016 that basically said that if you file as a trust, you have to have all your trustees go through the same process as an individual would.
Okay.
So I was originally doing trust because I'm like, this is the golden ticket. Like this, you know, you'll get through this a lot faster if you apply as a legal entity. You know, and I did a lot of those. So trusts for purposes of Class 3 filings is not worth it anymore because it doesn't save you any time or any trouble.
Yep.
But it still makes sense to have a firearms trust because everyone you name as a trustee has the same rights as you do to possess your firearms. So if anything happens to you, let's say you name your brother as a trustee, then the guns just go to your brother rather than being held in police lockup indefinitely.
Yeah. So basically, kind of like in layman's terms, if you have a trust in place for your firearms, if something happens and say these red flag laws go through and your neighbor says, hey, this guy's doing some stuff and I don't think he's safe, and then they try to come take your guns, they can't take your guns, it'll go to another trustee instead of being confiscated.
They'll certainly still try.
They'll try.
You'd have to say, like, I have someone who's a trustee, I'm going to put these in their possession, and the cop would probably want to stand next to you until it happens.
Yeah.
If the red flag situation goes through.
But even if not, even if like say something happens and God forbid you're blamed in a crime and where your guns would be confiscated, you still kind of have recourse to, in those cases, do you still have recourse to say you can't take these will go to another trustee?
Well, if they're evidence, you're going to have a hard time arguing that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so say you were involved or allegedly involved in a crime, but didn't involve the guns.
Sure. So like felons or a domestic assault, they're prohibited from possessing firearms. That would also be another good instance for having a firearms trust because then you could transfer it to them rather than everything being held in police lockup.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just so it's something to think about for people that own multiple firearms or, you know, have a collection that's worth some money and that way you could,
Or if you're old, you just want to make sure that it goes to the right people.
yeah, when you pass, because, that's a whole other area of craziness, like death taxes and like what happens to your estate and craziness. Like, like death taxes is one of the most scumbaggery like taxes that there is. Like, I don't know if that's something you've talked, about or talk about, but, and I know it varies by state, but like basically you die and then say you have $100,000 in the bank and you're going to leave it to people, the state or the government wants a piece of that. And it's like, this is money that you've should have already been taxed on if it was income, no matter how it was get or receive, or if you did it from stocks or whatever, you had capital gains or whatever it was. And then it's like, because you died, the state wants a piece of that. It's so fucking scumbaggery. Like when you look at shit, I don't know if every state has that. I don't think so, but no, they don't, because I know that's why a lot of people move to Florida and shit like that. Like, there's some states that are a little more.
Not just the sunshine.
Yeah. It's fucking bananas when you think about it. Like, there's so many laws, and I'm this type of series. I'm going to do another one with my accountant at some point, and because we've had talks about like how in the '60s you could have like a single parent working and supporting a household of like 3 or 4 people, and how you can't do that anymore, and how a lot of that is like as a result of taxation. You know what I mean? And craziness with that, and how tax laws have evolved, especially over the last 40 or 50 years compared to when I say tax laws or rates of taxation have come up. And this is like stuff like people are going to be like, oh, you're so right wing and this. And I'm like, no, dude, it's just common sense perspective, dude. Like, like I don't mind,
regardless of your perspective.
I don't mind paying taxes. I mind paying an inordinate amount of taxes to a government that's bloated and wasteful and not doing the right thing with the tax money they're collecting. And all it's doing is contributing to the further growth of this fucking behemoth. You know what I mean? And it's crazy. Like when you really look at how much taxes you paid, we won't have to get into it now, but between, state income tax, federal income tax, and fucking property tax and excise tax on a vehicle that you've already paid sales tax on, and fucking this and that, and registration fees and license fees and all the things that aren't called taxes but in reality are fucking taxes. It's bananas, you know what I mean? And gas tax and fucking this and that and fucking, I don't know, it's crazy, man. Like this shit's getting harder to get by in the world, dude. In
brings
ways.
It back to Patriots today. I think the American Revolution was over like 3% taxes.
Yeah, and we pay well over 40%, close to 50% if you count all the shit. You know what I mean? All the different things that add up and factor into taxes. And it's how far we've gone from the idea. And I'm not even getting into the shit where Americans didn't even pay federal income tax until in the 1900s. You know what I mean? Like, it's, but that's neither here nor there. And then that'll get you down all kinds of wacky fucking rabbit holes and fucking whatnot. But anything else on the gun front that we haven't talked about that's important, or, considerations for people that, things to be aware of that are coming in the pipeline or that are existing, and things that people might not know about, or sticky situations? I know we've talked about a few things here.
Biden wants to appoint a new director of the ATF. I forget his name. I know the NRA opposes it, and I know that he was involved in Waco.
Yeah. And so here's the thing. This is a question I have for you as someone that's involved in law and see things. I hear so many things about the NRA, both pro and con, but on both sides of the fence, with gun owners and and with anti-gun people. Like what are, like, I guess what's the story from a legal standpoint, from your perspective? Like, what's the story with the NRA, and like, are they doing what they're supposed to be doing, or you know what I mean?
So I can't really analyze it from a legal perspective.
Yeah.
But I was a member of the NRA until that scandal came out about Wayne LaPierre going on like shopping sprees and getting $1 million salary regularly. And I said, yeah, that's where my money's going. I'm all done. And I became a life member of GOAL, Gun Owners Action League, which is a Massachusetts organization. Because NRA wasn't doing anything in Massachusetts anyway.
And there's also Gun Owners of America, which was another one that I used to kind of look into it because NRA, I find like when you get to any organization, you know, and it's sad because even like charities and like things that are supposed to do good by people, like people don't, I don't know if people are aware, nonprofit organization just means that at the end of the year, they don't accumulate profit.
Right. They can pay salaries of whatever they want.
So that doesn't mean that the CEO of fucking whatever organization or whatever charity doesn't make $2 million. And then at the end of the year, they're just scrambling to piss money away so they don't show a fucking profit.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's fucking crazy. Like how much, you know, in a way, you're almost like, you know, I'm not trying to knock the hustle either. Like people are doing whatever they can to circumvent draconian fucking laws. You know what I mean? Like, so it's crazy, but yeah, man, I don't know.
Coming soon, Choppahead, the religion.
Yeah, no shit. So for all intents and purposes, and this has never happened, so I can talk about this, there was a time that I was going to turn the shop into a religion called Church of the Parallel Twin when we were doing more Triumph stuff. Because it sounded esoteric enough, I think, like where you could say, like, people would be like, all right, whatever that is, you know, it's a fucking, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
I'm not an accountant, but that seems like the move to make.
Yeah. I mean, because they enjoy tax exempt status, you know, and you know, I guess, you know, we're going to read from the book of Clymer once a week and fucking anoint motherfuckers with oil. You know what I mean? I don't know. Like you could come up with enough wacky rituals and justify it. It's like art. You know what I mean? It's whatever bullshit you put behind it, you know, gives it the meaning that it has. Right. And
you should talk to your accountant about tax write-offs for art. I think that's the move to make.
Yeah.
I'm not an accountant and it's not accounting advice, but I think that's the move to make.
Yeah. But yeah, man. So anything else existing or coming up the pipeline that people should know in regards to gun law or just, you know, things about gun regulation that, you know, from a legal perspective that you think are wacky or think that, you know, need more critical examination or things that are, you know, nonsensical?
So in New York right now, there's a case that's supposed to be going to the Supreme Court, I think in October, regarding their permits. And it's going to be one of those cases that might determine whether or not permits are a thing or if the country becomes, you know, constitutional carry. It's like it has that kind of potential because New York is so restrictive with their permits, and the permits that they issue are, you know, you can go to and from the range because, again, New York is one of those very restrictive states.
Now, the whole state, or are you talking about the city? It's the city.
I believe the permits are in the city.
Yeah, because I feel like upstate New York is like a whole different
They cheer for the Red Sox in New York City. New York. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, than New York City. Yeah, but then half of Rhode Island roots for the Yankees, so you know what I mean? It's whatever. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I feel like it's so. I always feel bad for the people that live upstate New York that are subject to spillover from New York City. You know what I mean? Because they're two different places. You know, crazily different. You know. So what case is that?
I'm sorry. I should know the name of this, but again, like I don't have any notes in front of me. I just know that that's coming up. It's a pretty exciting time.
Now, do you think that's something that's going to get pushed because of current, like what's going on in the country health-wise?
I don't think health is going to be the concern. I think the bigger issue now is a push to add Supreme Justices to the Supreme Court because there's 9. There's a conservative majority, and those conservatives are going to, or are likely going to find in favor or find the New York permit situation, you know, untenable.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think the Biden administration is concerned about that.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. And they're trying to add 4 additional justices so they can have a majority in the Supreme Court, you know, the House of Representatives, the Senate, and the presidency. They can. Yeah. Some people think that that's going to change the country. If it does happen, it may. Who knows?
Now, I'm going to admit I'm ignorant of this situation. They want to add 4 additional.
Yes.
To the
existing 9.
Yeah.
Because in Trump's time, he was able to appoint more justices than. I can't remember the last time anyone appointed any more than 1.
He just happened to be president when
people
passed.
Yeah. Ginsburg died. So, he got another justice in.
Yeah.
So he sort of stacked it more conservative or originalist leaning.
Now, I don't understand how it seems almost childish. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, well, we don't get our way here, so, well, let's just make a rule where we add 4 more and we're going to appoint them.
Yeah.
That's fucking crazy.
That is crazy.
Now, I don't care what side you're on. If Trump was trying to do this, I would say the same exact fucking thing. Like, you can't just fucking do that.
Right.
It's fucking crazy.
Well, it was done once before, I think when Roosevelt was in. I'm not positive on that. My history is, it's okay, but it's not, I don't have the best.
But the fact that it was done once before is what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, but this was a long time ago. Like
Yeah.
A long, long time ago.
But I guess what's the reasoning is just because they feel it's slanted. But I mean, it's been slanted both ways in the past, just depending on who's in.
And the idea is that it's checks and balances. So if you've got a very liberal president and a very liberal, House of Reps and Senate, the legislative branch, then a conservative Supreme Court justice would balance it out so that nothing gets crazy.
Yeah. Well,
it could be the other way too.
Absolutely. And I mean, exactly your point. Checks and balances. Now, the problem I hate with this stuff is when I feel like I'm arguing this, people are going to be like, well, you're a Trump guy or you're a right-wing guy. And I'm like, no, I'm an independent first. So let me just point that caveat out. I'm not nobody because I don't really like many politicians at all. But the fact is that checks and balances is for a reason. And, it's absolute fucking terrifying to think that any party would have control over every single tenant of control, whether, you know what I mean? That's absolutely terrifying because they're just going to push through agendas, whatever their agendas are,
they're not going to
left
have
or right.
anything in their way.
And they're not going to have anything in their way. And it could, totally push the country like in weird directions, you know what I mean? Whether it's left or right. Mm-hmm. And, I hope people fucking rally against that shit. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. People don't seem to rally unless it's something that the media that is obviously not too objective forces, leads them to rally against, you know what I mean? And keep people distracted from the real fucking issues that are going on. Now, the fact is...
Tell your friends, Big Truth Podcast.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, don't come here for like real political advice or real news. Like, don't, this is, I really wish that there was a vetted, nonpartisan news outlet. And that's, if there could be one thing that was mainstream accessible, you know what I mean? Like there are nonpartisan, news outlets and independent news outlets that kind of just give you, the story and not the slant. But they're not as accessible as, CNN and Fox and MSNBC and that type of shit. You know what I mean? And, it's kind of a sad thing because that kind of just stirs the pot for the bullshit that's going on now, where you got people whipped up in fucking emotion and not really sitting back and thinking through things logically or reasonably. And they think they are, but they're not. They're just whipped up, you know what I mean? And then you go on social media and you're only friends with people that are like-minded for the most part, or you're only in groups that are people that are like-minded. So you're getting, a sounding board of people that are just yesing you, and, you're not. And then if someone doesn't agree with you, you're like, fuck you, silence. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't have a logical debate anymore or a discussion about things. It's just like, fuck you, you're an enemy. You're an enemy, fuck you, right? And
I got friends that think that I'm their right-wing friend, and I'm like, if you think I'm right wing, you should see where my right wing is. My right wing is way over there. So I'm pretty center. Like if you think that I'm your right wing, then then your perception and the information you're getting is not accurate.
I think, if I had to guess, I think people have more in common and are more central than they know or than they think. And the extremes of both sides have the loudest voices.
Sure.
And so you're seeing that more. And, if you sat down with your neighbor and you're a Republican and your neighbor's a Democrat, I bet you have more in common than you don't.
Sure.
But that's gone now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like, well, fuck him, or fuck her.
Yeah.
they're not on my team. And, that kind of divisiveness is not a good thing, man. There's nothing good can come of that. But, I don't know. I'm a fucking idiot that builds motorcycles and fucking removes tattoos, and don't listen to me for anything, you know what I mean? But I just try and get people just kind of thinking things out. Like, I'm not giving answers. I'm just think things out. And if you're going to have a hard position on something, have a real reasonable and logical and fact-driven kind of perspective on it, and not just gut reaction, visceral reaction, because that's what the people that you kind of support are saying, you know what I mean? Because it's just bad, dude, and it's like, and the more you kind of look at that and question shit, the more you see politicians on both sides are complete fucking retards, dude. Mm-hmm. Like, and you see how transparent it is, and, and then get really into following the money, where like, who's backing these people, and then you understand things even more. But like, all right, this stuff's going through because look at who's backing them and who's, contributing to their thing, or who's in their ear, and it's like, all right, so we see that more. And, but there's a lot of shit going on in the country right now that's real fucking wacky, man. And it's fucking scary, but half of me just hopes it gets so fucking out of control that shit just breaks. And then we hit hit the fucking restart button and be like, all right, fuck this. We got to start over. Let's fucking rethink this. You know what I mean? And, sadly, a lot of the things in the Constitution and whatnot are like actually pretty solid fucking. If we could just get back to that, it'd be pretty fucking easy, man. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's like, I just think that government's got so bloated and out of control, and that, it's almost impossible to get back to that, because those things are so fucking simple. You know what I mean? And it's like, we've got to a place where it's like too intricate and complicated, because there's too much too many bureaucratic layers to things,
Yep.
Is my uninformed, visceral thought about things. Not really, of course. Like, there's so many fucking facts and things that you could point out to the over expansive government control. So I'm not being visceral there. I'm just kidding.
I used to work for the state, so I come from with an inside perspective. And in my exit interview, I was surprised, because I was like, I'm going to keep this professional. I'm not going to tell them about any of my real problems. I want to go out on a good thing. And they were asking, they're like, what's wrong? Like, what can we do to improve? And I was like, well, I'm an attorney, and you've got another attorney and another attorney reviewing my work. That's 3 attorneys, each one making, more money than me, and the other one more money than him. Like, that's a redundancy that doesn't need to exist. Like, why are we doing it? And he's like, oh, it's government. That's just how we do things. So I'm like, that's not a reason. Like,
that's not a reason, nor is it an acceptable answer.
No.
But they don't even comprehend that. They're like, no, that's just how it is.
Right.
No, it doesn't have to be.
Right.
Shouldn't be.
Yeah. So he, the director of HR said that he's going to, bring this to the attention of somebody, but we'll see. I doubt anything's going to change.
No, because, yeah, it's fucking crazy. And that's the problem, is like, and we're like such a small state.
Yeah.
Imagine if, I guess we probably have a pretty decent population, though. You know what I mean?
Well, we're small, but we're wealthy, because we have all the schools, and then all of the medical industry, or a lot of it.
A lot of it, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is a good place if you're going to be sick. You know what I mean? So, there is a lot of medical expertise.
Sure.
Within 45 minutes of anywhere in Massachusetts. But I don't know. All right, man. Well, what else, man? Anything else that people should be concerned about or aware of or think about?
We haven't driven people into enough of a panic yet.
Yeah. No, I don't think this is. Yeah. I mean, well, here's the thing. Anytime there's a new president, they have a big list of things.
Sure.
How many of them do they really do?
None.
Yeah. And
nothing changes.
Not much changes. Like, you know what I mean? Some things, obviously things, but like, of all those things Biden is calling for, and first of all, didn't Biden say he wasn't going to do executive orders and do that type of shit? And then the first day he was like, how many did he sign? You know what I mean? Yeah. This is politics like 101. They say whatever they want to say that they think is going to get them elected, and then they just do whatever the fuck they want. And then if checks and balances work, the dumb shit doesn't get through. Yep. You know what I mean? Yep. And then things are just kind of go as normal. You know what I mean? But it gets everyone a furor. And I'm bringing this up because there's such a run on guns now and ammunition. You can't buy anything.
Yeah.
It's almost like housing now in Massachusetts or like wherever. Like if you like outside of the cities, like people putting houses up around here in Freetown and they're going for $30,000-$40,000 more than the asking price. You know what I mean? The first bid. But like you want to buy a gun in Massachusetts now, you can't because every gun store is fucking sold out based on hype and fear of what Biden's going to do.
If you want to make a gun, every 80% sold out too.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I wanted to bring you on so we can just talk about some of the stuff and what it really means and you know, the kind of the reality of the situation is to kind of calm things down a little, but also to make people more aware of like what potentially could be happening. And if any of this bothers you, get in touch with people. Like, you know, write your local representatives, write Biden. I don't know if that's going to really do any good, but somewhere someone must be accounting for everything to kind of gauge the will of the nation, you know what I mean?
Sure.
You know, but you're going to have more impact locally, obviously.
Sure. Even more local than that. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell people that, you know, have voting power.
Yeah.
Well, that's still a thing.
Yeah. And, you know, have thought out conversations with people and not just fucking fuck you debates. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like not big dick fucking debates. You know what I mean? Like fuck you.
And expand your lens.
Yeah.
Like, whoever you have who you think is right or whoever you have who you think is left, they're not. There's people more so.
Yeah.
There's people further out there and talk to those people.
Yeah. Yeah. And, but, you know, back up your, you know, research your stances. You know what I mean? If you have a stance and it's just based on visceral reaction, I'm not saying that's bad. We all do that, you know, but, you know, really research it so you have some facts and data to back it up. And like good data, like that's the other problem is that there's no fucking, it's hard to get good data nowadays because, you know, statistics is, you know, there's a bunch of numbers out there and you grab what corroborates your story. But there's also just facts. Like you can look at death rates. You can look at death rates by guns and you can look at death rates by guns by areas and you can see exactly what you said.
Yeah.
Like that in areas with the tightest gun laws, there are the most gun related deaths. You know what I mean? And it's like, but there needs to be more research into the whys of that. Like, is it because people can't defend themselves against people who are doing criminal acts? Is it because, you know, who knows? You know what I mean? Like, we don't get into the whys of things. We just get into what's going on and then let's address it instead of really going back to the point I've said 40 times and everyone's sick of me saying we address the symptoms and not the real causes of what the fuck is going on now. Just be aware of that shit. You know what I mean? Because and have a healthy, you know, it's not unpatriotic to question your government, you know, either side of the coin.
Thing you can do.
Exactly. And also hold these motherfuckers accountable because there's no accountability on part of these. You know, it's crazy. Even when motherfuckers get caught doing shady things and, you know, they have to step down or they do things, there's never any like legal ramifications to shit. You know what I mean? And people could do the most treacherous shit and they don't get there's no legal ramifications. They might just get demoted or something. You know what I mean? And there's no accountability. And there definitely is like an air of, you know, people that, you know, when people get to Senate or Congress or whatever, that they're kind of above the law, above the people. And, you know, we gotta bring motherfuckers back into the fold and give them a better perspective of things. And, you know, I don't know. And that's both sides of the coin. You know what I mean? So everyone don't say I'm left or right. I'm independent, motherfuckers. I've always been independent. I think I registered as a libertarian once and I said, I don't even want to be involved with that. You know what I mean? You know, it's like, just because, I don't know. I feel like once too many people get involved with something, it gets corrupted. And you know, there's not one party I agree with 100%. So I'm going to stay independent, you know, and make choices, as they come. But, you know, but yeah, you know, it's in this day and age, it feels weird if you question something, people are like, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist or you're this and that. I'm like, no, I'm a motherfucker with questions. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm going to be forced to take something, I want to know about it. And I want to know why I got to take it. And if I got to take it, why do I got to do all this shit that I got to do if I don't take it? You know what I mean? Like, what's the point of taking it? You know what I mean? Like, you know, whatever. I don't even get in to say the words because people get so upset. You know what I mean? But I'm just talking in generalities now. But, you know, I don't know. I got guns. I never killed anyone with a gun. Or ever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fucking, you know what I mean? Guns don't kill people. People kill people. You know what I mean? You know, when you're talking about murder. You know, plenty of things kill people.
Sure.
You know, whether it's a little fucking microscopic virus or it's a fucking whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of going on a diatribe. I drank a lot earlier before we started this podcast because I was at my friend's Jack and Jill fucking baby shower, which is a new thing.
If ever a reason to drink.
Yeah. Well, this was a good one. It wasn't like it was a very low key and it was a good one. But yeah, man, anything else that we haven't touched on that you think's important? I know we're kind of I'm driveling on here. I don't mean to be.
No, can't think of anything.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on. Best of luck with your criminal defense new firm. And if you are in Massachusetts and you need a criminal defense attorney, or you need someone to help you with gun stuff, and you got the money to spend, because I only mean in Massachusetts, because as Will pointed out earlier, you might be going through a lot of appeals on shit. Hit up Will, and it's wordefense.com. And on Instagram at WOR Defense, right? Mm-hmm. And you know, it'll be in the show notes in case you don't remember. Yeah, man. Well, fuck yeah, dude. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Anything else before we wrap up?
Nope.
All right.